GFSI, and since I've been doing this job, it seems to be the most important thing that I do, where I trot out and have a chat to people, and people say, oh, GFSI is standards owners, standards do audits, GFSI certificate, GFSI accreditation, GFSI certified, GFSI, and none of those things are actually what we do. So broadly speaking, GFSI is a benchmarking organisation led by the food industry, led by the world's largest food, drink and consumer goods companies, who set a benchmark, a high-level benchmark, which is designed to enable third-party certification programme owners, those that own standards, those that really do own standards, to voluntarily offer their standards up to us for alignment with our benchmark. So it's a very high level, it's not prescriptive, it's not like a standard itself. It's very much a set of requirements that standards can align with, but then can have the latitude, which is very important, to then create their own standards within, meeting the benchmarking requirements. So it will say you have to have a section in your audit that, that challenges a business on its food safety management system. You have to have competent audits, you have to have, blah, blah, blah. So essentially that's what GFSI is and does. And I think it's fair to say, if I can start, and I always like to start with things that we've got wrong before. Because I think this whole thorny issue of auditor competence is something that people have been wrestling with since time immemorial. And everyone still continues to debate and discuss the fact that it's still a problem. And a bit like we heard this morning, we're still talking about food safety issues that should be solved by now. This is something that really should have been solved. And the role that GFSI plays in the world is not to dictate the requirements per se for auditor competence, because we're not the experts. And when we've got things wrong in the past, we have kind of overstepped our remit and stepped into a world where we said, oh, well, GFSI knows best. We'll set an exam for all these poor bloody auditors, that on top of everything else that we're expecting them to do through the standards owners that we recognise, we're now going to give them a special exam, like we're experts at setting exams with no curriculum and nothing else. Yeah. So I think it's fair to say it's well intended, what we've done in the past, but we really haven't got this right. So broadly speaking, what GFSI does through its benchmarking requirements is it imposes on the standards owners who want to be recognised by GFSI a set of requirements around auditor competence. The auditor must be competent, they must demonstrate competence, they must operate within the scopes of their competence, they should not be out auditing in areas that they are not technically competent. But broadly speaking, currently, we leave the assessment of their competence to the standards owners and to the certification bodies who they contract with to deliver the audits on their behalf. So that's the current picture. It's a moving picture, but that's the current picture.
And how's the response so far from these certification bodies or from the scheme owners, like when you have these kind of discussions?
So I think it's fair to say the reason why we are moving to doing what we're doing, and we hopefully will get a chance to talk about what we're actually doing in this space, is the standards owners, the CPOs and the CBs that they work very closely with, legitimately bringing to GFSI this problem of the dearth of auditors. This idea that there's just not enough people doing this job, wanting to do this job, coming into this as a profession. We're not retaining them, we're not recruiting them, and laying that problem squarely at our door and our feet. Because the reality of it is, if we can effect some change at the third party end, that should notionally have a knock-on effect all the way down. So broadly speaking, everything we're doing is focused on that challenge first and foremost, which is how do we deal with the dearth of auditors, and then naturally that will lead to a place where we then start to look at, or at the same time look at, why is there a dearth? What is it about this career that is not attractive? And what is it that we want people to be able to demonstrate that they can do? Because I think our experience is there is no consistency about what makes an auditor at any level of their career. This is not a lifelong career for people. And I think that inconsistency is a major issue. And that is something that we are seeking to tackle. And this is a cause very close to my heart. And I'm going to steal my own story back from Julian, because otherwise he's going to tell it and I don't want him to. I have to be honest and say that I was one of those people who had a bit of a midlife crisis and thought, I'm going to leave the food industry and I've got all the skills, knowledge and behaviours to be a great food safety auditor. And I trotted off to one of the standers, and I'm great at exams. Anybody here great at exams? I love a bloody test, me. Oh, I love a test. Oh, give me a test, I'm like, oh, I love it. You know, and I swat up all the stuff, and I spew it all out beautifully on test day. I know all the ruddy answers, and I get 100% every time. I'm like, yes, I'm great. And then everything I've learned just goes straight out my ears, yeah? I just forget it all. Yeah. So I am like the worst kind of, if you can draw a picture of the monster auditor, that would be me. That for the first reason. The second reason being, I'm just, you know, a bit bossy and a bit I know best and a bit aggressive sometimes. I probably talk more than I listen. Yeah, I've got all the worst qualities, yeah? But it didn't deter me, because I passed the test, I thought I was great, I trotted off, I went out and did the first audit, and I was horrible. I mean, completely horrible. And worse than that, I got to the end of it thinking I'd had a lovely day and a lovely time, and this was like a great experience. And then someone said, oh, you've got to write a report. And I was like, oh God, really? I've got to write a report? Really? Did a terrible job on the report. And thankfully, based on my own self-reflection and having a mentor on that first audit who said, Erica, this is not a job for you. You have none of the skills needed. You might have passed the test, but you're rubbish. Off you go and find something else to do with your life. And that was right. That was absolutely right. I am your monster auditor. So this is a cause very close to my heart. And as a consequence, I have an enormous amount of respect for people who can do this job, for people who want to do this job, because this should be the best job in the world. This is at the absolute front line of protecting consumers from bad food. This is at the front line of you know, helping and enabling and educating and bringing food businesses from where they are to where they want to be and should be. This is a wonderful job, but currently it doesn't look that way. And that's a problem that we need to address. So I hope that there are many auditors in the room. We love you, thank you, please stick with it, and please encourage others to do this, because it is a terrific job, and we thank you very much for everything that you do.